and welcome to Conversations with Goddess. I am Heaven Hope, and on the show today, I have an amazing woman named Sundari Dembe, who has written a book called The Choice for Happiness. You're going to have to help me out with the title.
The Choice of Happiness, Glimpses from an Extraordinary, Ordinary, Scientific, Mystical Life.
Love for you to share with us the origination, inspiration for that book, The Choice for Happiness, which is something I think all of us would love to learn more about.
Right. We each need that in our lives.
Especially now.
I was in a spiritual writers group in 2005 and wrote up a story, a dramatic story for my life, and read it to the group. And some guy in the group said, "You should write a book on that." And so I was driving home in the car and a funnel opened up over my head. And I'd been thinking of 3 different books, one more scientific, one more philosophical, spiritual, and one more pilgrimages around the world, stories about what's gone on in my life, more autobiographical. And the 3 just mixed up into one. And instantly, in a microsecond, I had 150 pages just sitting there.
Wow.
And it took me about 6 weeks to transcribe that and another 8 years to understand what I'd gotten and write up the rest. And then another 4 years until a New York Times bestselling author asked to see my manuscript, someone from A Course in Miracles, and inspired me, said, "You've got to get this book out," and wrote the little blurb on the cover, Gary Renard. And so he really got me into publishing it.
I remember reading something you emailed me called Choose Joy. And in it, you talked about various challenges in your life, various life experiences that for most people would have been probably incredibly overwhelming. But I was so impressed and inspired by the way you chose to deal with these situations in your life, going all the way back to when you were in Chicago. Was it University of Chicago?
I was a graduate student working on a doctorate in chemical physics at University of Chicago.
There were various things that occurred that, to me, I could not even fathom how to deal with. Would you please share with us about some of those experiences that happened when you were a graduate student?
I was a very serious student and worked diligently 4.5 years there on the doctorate. And my advisor, I was working in superfluidity and something called quantized vortices and superfluid liquid helium, and developed the coldest system in the world, developed thermometry for it, and then was looking at these rather esoteric properties of vortices that formed in the superfluid. And my advisor at some point said, "You're done." And I said, "Great." And he said, "Write it up." And then he dropped dead 10 days later.
Wow.
The department came to me and said, "Sorry, Miss Dembe, but the next fellow won't have a woman in his research group. And you're going to have to start your entire project over again with a new advisor on a new project." And 4 days after that, someone randomly broke into my apartment in the middle of the night and assaulted me. And the department sent flowers for the assault. But for the next 3 months, although I was paying tuition and all that, no one ever spoke to me. And I really didn't get any support or guidance in how to finish the degree. So at that point, I sat there 3 months reading the newspaper, and then I came and took a week trip out to California, found a full-time college teaching job in a week, and decided, well, I guess I'll do this for a while and then figure out what to do about the doctorate.
Where did you find the resilience and the wisdom and the inner strength to deal with all of these things converging at that point in your life?
Well, I didn't deal with it that well. And it was the age before women openly spoke about being assaulted. It just wasn't I just kind of persevered. And when I came out to California, I was fortunate enough to connect with a Sufi mystery school, Claudio Naranjo's Seekers After Truth. And he brought us teacher after teacher. And it was profound, deep spiritual teachings. And I would spend, 30, 40 hours a week on spiritual things in addition to teaching my chemistry full time. And I ended up teaching with his groups for about 4, 5, 6 years there, and was introduced to so many different practices in so many different esoteric aspects of various religions. And it really helped me gain a different perspective on going through adverse circumstances.
I'm feeling like I'm personally going through something like that at this point in my life. So it was all the more important for me to sort of power through whatever obstacles I had in order to finally hold this interview. I feel you have so much wisdom to share with the world. I am constantly in awe when I read information that you've shared with me about your journey. And you and I have met as priestesses at a Divine Feminine event. And you also have an incredible journey as a priestess and as an overall spiritual adept. So share with us, please, what are some of the esoteric practices that you have encountered in your life? Because I'm sure that they were key to the journey that you've been on.
I think it's not so much practices as attitudes, and aligning with what is and ways of moving through that. In my book, I'll go through some practices that are really useful in these times. And by practices, I'm more meaning attitudes.
I would love for you to dive into that right now. That would be a great service to me and hopefully anyone who's watching.
I've come to learn the principle of allowing. And allow is ALLOW. So if you don't allow the ALL, the all, you're left with ow. And
I love that.
How does this work practically?
Please share with me right now. Thank you. I need to hear this because I'm in a moment of ow.
The trick is to get into gratitude and through that into joy. And so how do we do this? Something goes awry, COVID, whatever, you're stuck with, my degree from scratch. And then it was interesting because later on with that degree, someone else won the Nobel Prize for the same work. So it was a big deal. And so I think I need a doorway into gratitude. And for me, one of my biggest doorways is to think, what gift, if I was writing with the divine, a cosmic dance card for my life, and I had written in COVID, not getting the degree, whatever, a rape, what gift could I possibly be giving myself? And just the contemplation, even if you don't get the right gift, the contemplation of how could I be gifting myself in this situation if I'd created it with the divine, allows one to step out of the victimhood and blaming, that is so easy to get into in our present society. And then gratitude for me is like a contraction of great attitude. It's just a great attitude.
I really acknowledge that in you. I am so inspired by your great attitude. It blows my mind, literally. So this is why it's all the more important that you can just spell it out for us. How do we embody and live from this place of great attitude?
One of the largest doors for me, and one I explore very deeply in about 7 subchapters in one section of the book, is forgiving. And I like thinking of the word as having a hyphen for giving. On a very simple level, That's simply, you can call a friend, getting out of your deep, dark states, or send an email, but there are certain ways to step into a forgiving state. And the titles, like some of the subchapters that I do in this book on it, are looking at all traits as my own. So if I get really angry at somebody, and it's just like, they're just so judgmental. They're so perfectionist. They're so, whatever, critical. Then I look for those qualities in myself and I say, well, let's see. And I truly, honestly believe that there's nothing positive or negative. And truthfully, I do come from a position of non-duality where together, this world for me is an illusion. And together, we are one mind dreaming the dream of creation together, co-creating this with the divine. And so anything I'm seeing is just a projection of myself, asking for forgiveness, acceptance, and allowing.
That's a beautiful statement. It's very high consciousness. And on the planet right now, we're dealing with a lot of really intense things. And not to mention, you on your own journey have dealt with things such as the rape, and then, the whole derailing of your graduate thesis and having to start from scratch. So when you have these intense things that are coming up for you, how do you actually embody that vibration of forgiving and taking a look at yourself? What are you seeing in that situation that is the gift? Because I must be honest, as I listen to your story and as I've read it, I sometimes just shake my head and say, I don't know if she's just a more enlightened woman than I am. I would love for you to share whatever insights that would be helpful to us at this time, because we're dealing with a lot.
It does take practice, like riding a bike.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard at first. How could anybody possibly do that? And so I've done meditation virtually every day since about 74. And so there's a lot of self-reflection. And I really watch my thoughts. And I think if I start, oh my God, am I, looking okay, feeling, you look, or I did the dumbest thing. I catch all those thoughts. And I say, is this what I want to bless myself with in the moment?
One more time, so it really lands.
It's like we put an emotional, creative blanket of thought,
Mm-hmm.
A thought around us, and we emotionally infuse it, and that creates our reality. That's what creates the projection. And I've been able, when things go awry, I can trace it back often to a thought I had. And one thing that I believe is happening on the planet now is more and more higher energy is available to us, meaning that these thoughts are manifesting faster and faster. And so it becomes easier through the higher energies to see what we're doing, but also the manifestations happening very quickly. So you can flip it around quickly. It helps to put one's thought on what one wants to manifest. So, for example, at one point in my life, my daughter was hospitalized 81 days with doctors saying she was dying every day. And what am I going to do with my attention in that case? And I looked at it and I said, if I believe what these doctors are telling me, I'll go down in a spiral. And so I chose very consciously, building up my muscles, to see my daughter as healthy and well in spite of what they were saying. And just look at her light, look at my light. That's really what I did. I didn't hold any particular outcome. I gave up outcome. I just held her light, held my light for 10 to 16 hours a day when I was with her, and had this one picture of being at a lecture in the future, watching her give a talk on this period of her life. And she made it through that period. And I did have the feeling if I had gone downhill, she wouldn't have seen the reflection of hope it's your name. She wouldn't have seen the reflection of hope enough to believe in herself. And each of us need to do this for ourselves and for others.
How would you frame what is happening on planet Earth at this time? Because it is requiring each and every one of us to really step up and hold the highest vision for the outcome. No matter how bleak things appear, it is imperative that we hold that high vision of hope, correct?
It is. Mm-hmm. Actually, as terrible as things look, mm-hmm. I see this as a hopeful moment. I see this as a moment of the destruction of systems that have never worked and need change. So I see this planetary moment as not only the destruction, but also the seeding of new, more compassionate systems of healthcare, government, economics, education, policing, race relations, interpersonal relations, and interactions. When I was awarded this degree, our interview with the president of the University of Chicago, right exactly after I got my degree. And when I've been ordained as a priestess, and I have actually 3 ordinations, I feel sometimes a tremendous energy. Sometimes I'm in a stream of incredible energy. In this huge courtyard with 1,000 people graduating in different areas, he had us each stand up, and I felt this huge download of energy. And in the process of going toward the degree, his vice president of communications had said to me, you know, the moment of his giving this degree to you and to another woman who'd been denied her degree 50 years, he said was his finest moment in the 14 years he was president. And I asked Spirit, what do you mean? How could this possibly be? And what I was told is that the University of Chicago manifests the divine masculine, all that fiscal stability and knowledge and shining out. And it was a moment of the divine masculine calling up the divine feminine in giving me my degree, in giving this other woman the degree, to the point that this fellow would think that's his finest moment in 14 years of being president there. And see, when the men call up the women, for the first time, they can be whole. For the first time, they can embrace both their brain hemispheres, is really what I'm talking about. Embrace their own nurturing qualities and emotional contact and such, and become whole. And in doing that, women can embrace their shining out, fiscally stable, knowledge base. And what happens is when we start doing that as individuals, when women are allowed to stand up fully, to open their 5th chakra, to speak out their truth, what happens is at that moment, society can get balanced institutions. We need that balance, and we need the women, the divine femininity, to step up in order to give the balance that we each need in our own brains and within ourselves and within societal institutions. And I see this is what's happening now on the planet.
There is a massive awakening that is happening, which is part of the inspiration of Conversations with Goddess. It is all about the divine feminine energy rising on the planet. The wings of humanity are comprised of 2 halves, the masculine and the feminine. And unless both are in equal balance and of equal strength, the bird will not fly. And for the first time ever, I am feeling that that bird is starting to come into harmonic balance and honor. And I feel your story so totally represents that. That's why I had to have you on the show. And I would love for you to elaborate about how you ended up getting your degree.
20 years ago, I discovered the person who won the Nobel Prize for almost the same research. I was on sabbatical, reading up in my field, and there was this research which looked just like mine. And I looked it up in the journals, and it still looked like, not that it was taken from me, but somebody had done parallel research and won the Nobel for it. So Doug Osheroff from Stanford. So I called him up on the phone and I said, and talked to him about it. And he said, well, heard about you guys, heard about your work, and you should have gotten your degree. I'll support you in that. Write Chicago. So with his encouragement, I wrote the University of Chicago 20 years ago, but at that point, no one answered. But the times are different now. And I was in a #MeToo group and in 2018. And I thought, heck, I should have gotten that degree. And so I wrote the president of the University of Chicago. And this time things went quite differently. Within days, I was contacted by the provost, by the gender equity Title IX people, interviewed for a few hours. I was asked, do you still have your research? And for more than 4 decades, I carried around my 500 pages of research. They wrote me back a letter. Oh, I wish I could read that part, because so seldom do you ever hear deep acknowledgement. Oh, here it is. I get to do it.
Yes, please share it.
Dear Miss Dembe, thank you for your letter. Following correspondence with the Department of Chemistry at the University of Chicago in 2000, we regret that the university did not respond to your request 18 years ago, and regret still more that your difficulties while you were a student in our department were handled with such negligence.
Wow.
We thank assistance in writing again, and especially for presenting us with an opportunity to partially rectify these mistakes of the past. And then the rest of the letter awards me my PhD, and they invite me to participate in the convocation, and I received my degree June 15th, 2019. And they paid for me and my children to watch me. And it was a remarkable, clean statement, which honored us all.
A miracle manifested here, because there was no knowing, just as with your daughter, what the outcome would be, right? And how did that evolve? How did that manifest? It's such an important story to share. That's what I mean about really giving voice to the divine feminine through each and every one of us, and especially you, Sundari.
I consciously approached them with no anger. I secondly believed them to have the integrity necessary to correct an error. And when you think the best of someone, even someone who has terribly wronged you, if you can think the best of them, they tend to step up into that, because that's what's being reflected back to them. And so they were at their best from my doing that, and I was at my best, thinking well of myself. I gave them 3 choices of a satisfactory solution for me. Give me my degree, or give me an honorary degree, or use my book as a dissertation, because I could have written it back then, but the break had been too long to write it now. And 4th, I had to give up a specific outcome, that allowing principle. And stepped up into an amazing position. I believe I'm the only person in the history of the University of Chicago to be given a full doctorate with no dissertation.
What is the message you would give your younger self now, who went through those experiences at that time?
I've actually reached back in time to key moments. Like at that key moment in time, not this particular one, but a hand reached and pulled me out of very dark state. And we can do that for ourselves. Time is not a real construct. And it was only years later that I realized that it was literally me in the future reaching back to rescue myself.
Wow. Are you saying your future self literally did that?
Literally.
Did you even know to do that?
Well, way back in the circumstance when I was in such darkness, I experienced a hand that I grabbed to pull me out. And only 20, 30, years later did I realize it was my own.
Really? So would you say that was your higher self?
I think that we are all merged mixtures of the divine. It's like there's a vertical level of enlightenment. I and my father are one. I and my mother are one.
So thanks for reframing that.
And I and my brother and sister are one. And there's a combination. That one thing I do on a daily basis right now is a 5-minute mirror exercise after meditation every morning of saying kind words to myself in a mirror.
Such as?
Oh, it's just good qualities. I'm generous, kind, loving, giving, forgiving, and also qualities that I want to manifest. But I've done this exercise so long, it started being really hard at first, and then it got easier. And then it became the divine itself, her energy speaking to me back, saying, you are not alone. We are with you. We are holding you. We are loving you. We are cherishing you. We are worshiping you. You matter. And even every day, it's real to me. Before I started doing that exercise, I couldn't go to restaurants alone or movies. And then it got to feel like, oh, I'm on a date with this person who says these nice words to me in the mirror. I mean, it really changed my life to do this 5-minute mirror exercise a day.
That leads me to the question about the goddess. As this is Conversations with Goddess, who is she to you? Who is the goddess?
Okay. This is so cool. The goddess is these gentle forces of the universe. But I was in an elevator once with someone who channeled Nikola Tesla. Okay, this is a very nerdy answer to what you're saying. And they said, do you want to ask a question? I said, yes. And I asked, what's magnetism? Because I always wanted to know. And you know how they talk about men as the electric force, grounding into the planet, and women is the magnetic. And so Tesla told me there's a 3-dimensional matrix and of the electric, the magnetic, and the magnetic is the resolving force between another dimension and here. And what do women do but dive into another dimension and bring forth a being through it? I'm ordained as a priestess of the divine feminine, and she's the divine matrix of all that is, birthing creation moment by moment by the emotional thought energies that we surround ourselves with. And for me, the divine feminine is the bridge between heaven and earth. I just described it scientifically this is from Nikola Tesla, but it's exactly the same. It's the bridge between heaven and earth, because we dive as women into that other dimensionality. And so in more Christian belief, the Holy Spirit has been defeminized, but is again that bridge between heaven and earth, and seems to have that feminine nature in doing that. And in that, our soul, body, existence here on earth is connected. And only in that can we find benevolence. Benevolence is the only word I know that embraces every person for their highest good. And it feels to me that it's our soul connection, and only that, and only through guidance. And I spend almost all my meditation these days downloading the divine as my operating system. and I download it into my thoughts, feelings, beliefs, liver, kidney, heart.
Wow, that's so beautiful. How do you do that?
My intention is downloading spirit as my operating system. And moment by moment, I go to spirit at what should I say? What should I do? What should I think? What should I feel? And I also have gotten to a point in my own beingness where I can say to spirit, I'm willing to exist solely as your love in form, as your peace in form. Make it so here now, and let me palpably feel that love through every person, every situation, every circumstance of my life, no matter what. And so it's become, and literally I'll just go through my bones and my blood vessels and my lymphatic, my immune system. And interestingly enough, I've done this for years and I take no medications and I'm in health. And I think that it's because I feel that this vehicle that I am is neutral and I'm allowing myself to be lived rather than thinking I can find benevolence on my own.
Wow, that is so powerful. I am just in awe of what you have cultivated as your own unique spiritual practice. And I feel now more than ever, this is key. So is there a takeaway you can share with the listeners and the audience about how to live that in their own experience of life?
It's really daring to believe your own worth and daring to believe that you can hear guidance. And even if outrageously it has your own voice when it comes through, you know, it might sound like you.
It does a lot, doesn't it? Oftentimes. And it's about us finally saying, okay, I own that. I believe that ultimately that's what is happening on the planet now, is there's this ownership of who we are as divine beings. And it is time to own your gift and offer it up in service to the planet. That is the divine feminine blueprint. Would you agree?
I think that's beautiful. Having taken in, worked it, you know, there's the feminine is receptive. It's funny. I always learned science different than men. Like men would go poke, 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 poke. You know, you take data, make a theory. Okay. So I had, you know, I learned that part, poke, 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 take data. But in order to understand it, I had to take it into myself, make it my own, allow spirit, energy, inspiration, whatever you want to call that, to come up with a theory and then give birth to it. And these things need practice. You know, I mean, there's so few of us that think highly of ourselves. You know, and I think I've spent some time setting the goal. Like when I was forgiving my mother, I went through I described that in the book, like this whole big process when I had a kind of hard relationship with my mother, never finishing a sentence. And, you know, she's kind of an angry person at times. And at one point, Spirit said, you need to clear this energy while she's still here, you know. And so I said, whoa. And I went along for a year. How do I do this? How do I do this? And then I was shown us as an energy egg with a mommy dent. Is my judgments of her, how I expected her to be, or how I expect anybody to be, or if you expect your husband to be the same person he was yesterday. It's all those judgments. You know, are you waking up allowing the new person to be there? And so I said, well, how do I change my mommy dent? And Spirit said, what you do is say what you want. And so real succinctly, I said, my mother and I have a nurturing, satisfying, fun-filled relationship. And for the next 3 visits I had with her, and she was in a different city, I said that 10 minutes in morning, 10 minutes night. And then when I went to see her, she was trying to decide to move into a assisted living community. And she said, should I do it? And I said, why don't you ask your guidance when you're sleeping tonight? We were in the same room and she went to sleep. And my father came to her in the dream and said, you should move there. And then he said, you've been mean to Cheryl. You should kiss her foot. And she did. My little, I mean, this was so unlike her. This was unbelievable. But the moment that happened, our relationship totally changed, actually. She didn't interrupt me anymore. We had 6 more great years together, taking 3 cruises together. And it was like a different person. She was nurturing, satisfying, and fun-filled. And that she was 86 at the point that shift happened. This shift can happen with anyone. So set your goal. Set your goal. For people I have problems with, as I pass their house or something, I'll say kindness, consideration, respect, trying to seed something different than the attack thoughts that come up automatically.
I would love for you to join me in using your amazing power of miracle-mindedness in setting an intention, saying a blessing for the planet, for all our brothers and sisters, for humanity, for Mother Gaia at this time, and using the tools that you have written about in your book, The Choice for Happiness. Let's close with a prayer and a blessing for the.
I call on the divine to embrace and bless us in ever deeper levels of joining with her and with each other, sharing and acknowledging our light so that we become the great rays themselves, shining her beauty, support, wisdom, and truth into this planet and into our evolution. May it be so.
May it be so. And I invoke the presence of the great Mother Goddess and the divine love and light that flows through each and every one of us. And I say to those of you who are watching, may you be blessed. May you truly, truly know your value and your worth. You are loved. You are safe. You are divine. You are always held in the mother's embrace. So for this and so much more, I'm infinitely grateful for this amazing time that I've shared with Dr. Sundari Cheryl Dembe. Thank you so much for your consciousness, for your love, your light, and your joy. May you go out and bless the planet, because there's so much more I know that you haven't even tapped into. For this and so much more, I'm infinitely grateful for this time together. And if you found any value from the show, please share it with as many people on the planet right now who could get value out of hearing her story. So thank you again, Sundari, for joining me on Conversations with Goddess. I am Heaven Hope at your service, and may Goddess bless us all, and she does.